introduction. Okay, good morning everybody.
Morning.
How is everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Okay, so for people who do not know me, I know most of you. My name is Bashar Masad. I'm the CEO of MKN Group. And our guest from Grandstream, our instructor actually is Ernesto Calderon. Did I pronounce it right?
Perfect.
Good. He's the manager?
Head of support.
Head of support engineering at Grandstream in Boston. We're gonna have a long day today. We're gonna be focusing on the advanced features of the UCM6100. So we really need to be focused. Some just logistics around the place here. So coffee is outside. The kitchen is to your left. We have drinks, water, pots, everything is there. Washrooms, you have to get out from the kitchen across the hallway. We're going to have 90 minutes, then 5 minutes break, then another 90 minutes, and then we're gonna have lunch. We have ordered pizza that will arrive here at 12. And then during the lunch time, between 12 and 1, Ernesto is going to demo or show you the new Grandstream GVC3200, which is the conference solution that the Grandstream is launching soon. So you're welcome to go grab your pizza, come back, sit here. If you want to go outside, do your emails and stuff, please, do that. Now, I believe as a respect to Ernesto and to the other people, if you can avoid using your cell phones. I know it's really difficult. But I mean, if you want to at least put it on vibrate, and we really recommend to pay attention because Ernesto is not here every day. This is a great opportunity for you guys to learn. Now, there will be questions, during that training. We will try to minimize the questions because we have a schedule to follow. At 4:30, we have a hard stop to do the exam, the certification exam for 30 minutes. And then Ernesto has a flight to catch at 8, so he has to be out of here by 6 by all means. So again, I was hoping we can spend some time tonight with Ernesto with a few questions and stuff. But anyway, he's gonna give
Probably
a
after
business
5.
card.
After 5 we can
Between
do
5 and
together.
6, maybe we can have a free discussion around the coffee table outside, something like that. So please feel free. If you have something in mind, just keep it until that time. Okay? And I'm here. Anything you want regarding logistics, regarding any help with your technical stuff, please let me know. Okay? So Ernesto, here you go.
All right, thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. So, as Bashar mentioned before, my name is Ernesto Calderon, and I'm the head of support for Grandstream for the North America region. So I basically cover U.S. and Canada. Grandstream sell worldwide, so we have support teams in different regions, like in Morocco, for example. We have a team there that is covering all of EMEA. In Asia-Pac, we have our team. Latin America, we have an office in Venezuela that covers the whole Latin America area. And myself, I'm head of the support for North America, where we have 2 offices, one in Boston, one in Los Angeles, so we can cover basically all the time zones. Before getting started, let me give you a brief description of how you can get support from Grandstream. One of the advantages that Grandstream is doing is basically providing support to anyone, from end user, resellers, and distributors. So the way that you can gain or you can have quicker support is by signing in as a reseller. So if you go to the Grandstream website, you can go click on the Reseller Connect. When you subscribe or sign up as a reseller, there's a small process that we need to verify with Bashar that you indeed are a MKN reseller. So once we approve you, you have an ID. From the Reseller Connect, you can download high-res pictures, documentation. You can get the latest firmware. Beta firmware. We have a $1 beta club that when we release a new product, we can send it to one of our beta testers. If you want to form part of that team, you can do so from the Reseller Connect. And from that same portal, you can open a ticket. So once you open a ticket using your reseller ID, then the ticket is going to be prioritized and you should be getting a response within 4 hours. We also have the phones are available for you to call. If you want to give us a call, make sure you have the ticket or your user ID number. So when you enter in the system, you know that your call is going to be routed to the engineer that is taking care of your case. We provide support Monday to Friday, 8:30 to basically 8:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Before opening a ticket, I recommend you to go to the website, go to the forum. We have a lot of questions, FAQ section that you can probably get an answer. And of course, because you are a reseller from MKN, any technical question that you may have, please address it to MKN first. Most of the time, he's going to have an answer because he's local. Sometimes regional questions are better to be answered by someone local. And when we're talking about line tones that apply to certain rhythms. So having said that, today, basically I'm going to divide it like this. Probably about 90 minutes of presentation so you can see and understand what UCM is capable of, the new features that we have, the differences between the 4 different models that the UCM has. Remember, the UCM has 2 small appliances and 2 versions of the large appliance. After that, we're going to start hands-on. Basically, it's going to be a little advanced. So normally, I'm going to go from the beginning, from scratch, so out of the box. How to register extensions, trunks, call routing, ring groups IVR, and during that process, I'm going to expand more into the advanced settings that each module applies. Feel free to make any questions regarding what I'm discussing so I can expand more for you. And then during the breaks, we can chat a little bit, and then after 5 p.m., as Bashar mentioned, if you have any specific case, we can also talk about that later. So having said that, and by the way, I understand that most of you guys are resellers. Who has not installed a UCM? Just to have an idea, can you raise your hand? Okay. And I guess the rest have, at least, they know, you guys know how to UCM operate. You have played with it, you have made installations. All right, so just to remind you, the 6500, let me give a little highlights. Most of you may know already that it's a single brand solution. So we're trying to make a whole solution, a telephony, also a IP telephony solution, meaning PBX, IP phones, video phones, gateways, and now IP surveillance. If you have a Grandstream, one brand solution, you can have everything in one brand. Licensing-free solution. So everything. This is what the model that Grandstream is doing. We don't charge for licenses. What you see is what you get, basically. Codecs, for example, G729. All the vendors, they charge you per, when you want to buy the codecs, it's included already in all the Grandstream products. So if you want to add more, concurrent calls, simultaneous calls, or more extensions, you basically need to move to a different model. But all the UCM models that we have, for example, they support 500 extensions. So you can do whatever you want within that range. We guarantee the interoperability with other vendors. So every time that we release a new firmware, we make sure that our product, not only the PBX, but all the IP phones, they are compatible with Asterisk PBXs, obviously. The UCM is running on Asterisk 1.3. In all their vendors' PBXs, all soft switches, Resellers, for example, Metaswitch, Genband. Every time that we release a new firmware, every time that we come up with a new product, we have an interrupt team that is kind of running tests to make sure that the product works fine with these particular vendors. And of course, integration. So video surveillance, video phones, IP phones, is everything integrated with this particular PBX. With a couple of clicks, you can recognize any Grandstream product and provision it. And the price, of course, unbeatable. Now, Any UCM6100, you can have up to 500 extensions, up to 60 concurrent calls. That depends on the model. I'm going to explain that later. The 6102 has 2 FXO ports, 6104, 4 FXO, 8 and 16. So that's kind of the main difference between the 4 different models, the amount of FXO ports. In addition to the Ethernet ports. Some of them they have 2, some of them they have 1. Gigabit port, all of them has PoE+. That one means that the PBX can be powered through PoE, but PBX cannot provide power to the phones. It has a conference bridge, up to 32 conference attendees, 0 configuration provisioning. This is something that Grandstream has focused, have made a lot of effort to make sure that it's working fine, to make it super easy to auto-detect any Grandstream phone. For those who has used a PBX already, a Grandstream PBX, you're going to know that every single firmware update, it's more easy and more, you have more options, so you can provision the Grandstream phones. You can still use a third-party IP phone, of course, but the auto detection that doesn't work. And I mean, we're using Asterix 1.3, so it's an open source code for PBXs. What we did, since it's open source, we are developing and adding more options. We have a web interface that is super friendly. So basically from the web you have full control of everything. We don't have what they call a command line like Asterix has, because everything should be through the web interface. There are some APIs that I'm going to talk about later that you can still kind of go and connect and get some information, but it's sort of like a closed environment. The hardware specifications, so 1 gigahertz ARM core processor, all the 4 models, 512 megabits DDR RAM, and a 4 gigabits flash drive, basically. So it has integrated with 2, 4, 8, 16 FXO ports. All of them, they have 2 FXS ports. USB and SD drive, so all the units have a USB SD drive for storage, backup, basically for storage backup and upgrade firmware, for example. LED indication at the front, I mean, most of you guys have a USB 6100X. I see that most of them are small. So all of them, including the big ones, the 6108 and 16, they have a LED indicator so you can see the IP address, you can get into the menu, you can make some changes to the network, basic settings from the LCD.
Yeah. Are we going to get the copy of that presentation?
Yeah, I'll send it to Bashar, and he can distribute it to you guys.
Everything is going to cost you money now.
That's okay. Money's not an object. But
don't charge him much. Okay? It's gonna be
Yeah,
free.
I'll send it to you
When you're
guys.
in a lunch break, maybe you can freshen our memories.
Sure. Let's see how it goes.
So a small LCD on every single unit. And this is a little bit about the difference between the 4 units. The 6102 comes with a router, so it has 2 WAN and LAN ports. That one can be configured or programmed to be working as a switch, as a dual, and as a router. However, the 6104, it still has 2 LAN ports, but it doesn't have a router. All of them, they have 2 FXS ports, as I said. And the large appliances, they come with only 1 LAN port. 6102, besides the router, it has a DHCP server. Now, in terms of codecs, the UCM is capable of doing transcoding. So, I mean, the endpoints, they can negotiate their own codecs. But if you have a condition where you are working with 2 different brands of endpoints, or one phone and a service provider that they don't speak the same language, the same codec, then the UCM can intervene and do the transcoding for you. So that's why we support all the typical codecs including G729, video codecs, H263, 4, and 63 plus. Now, in terms of simultaneous calls, actually, let's see if I can. Right, so concurrent calling. 6102, up to 30 simultaneous calls. That's when the UCM is not doing transcoding. But still, the media needs to go through the UCM for recording purpose or billing purpose or CDR purpose. So then you can have up to 30 simultaneous calls. With this model, 6104, 45, and with the large appliances, up to 60 simultaneous calls.
So is that like you have 45 sets ringing? Or is that you have 45 people actually calling in?
Yeah,
Calling
audio,
in?
audio,
It's audio, it's audio, strictly about transcoding.
Correct.
Okay.
No, without transcoding. Now, if we're talking about transcoding, then depending on the codec that the UCM is transcoding, you have these limitations. So, if you're using what we call low bit rate, like ILBC, G729, then you can have only 8 simultaneous calls. If you are transcoding between a PCM or an LVR, then it's about 16 concurrent calls. And if you're not transcoding, then the maximum, which I mentioned before. Most of the cases.
Can you be more specific? They're putting in like PCM to LVR?
Yeah, LVR are low bit rate codecs. I believe 729, ILBC 726, 723 also. And PCM are not too compressed codecs, like G711, G722, and G38. So depending on what codec, type of codecs we are transcoding, then you're going to have this limitation. Most of the time, the PBX is not doing transcoding because you're going to have full Grandstream solution, or most of the IP phones, they use the PCMA or G711.
How about when you are going from the FXO to the...
No codec at that point. I mean, the FXO is basically analog, so then passing from the UCM back to the endpoint with only one codec. So there's no transcoding at that point.
But what if the endpoint is G729?
Then the codec would be only from UCM to the phone. No transcoding. So 729 from the UCM back to the phone.
So no limits?
Oh, gotcha. It's a good question. I believe it would be the same. Yes. Depending on what code you're using to the endpoint, then this will apply. However, FXOs, we have only 2, 4, 8, and 16. So then you are limited to 16 simultaneous calls, unless you're using low bit rate. It's going to come down to 8.
So FXO to low bit rate is only 8.
Correct.
There's one more question.
So
If it's video codecs, I'm guessing it's down to less than 8 calls.
that would be PCM. Video codec doesn't have much compression like the low bit rate. So video, if we do transcoding, we'll be applying this. But in most of the cases, you're using 264. So these are the only codec that exists for video, in other words.
Yeah.
So most likely you're using is not doing transcoding for video.
Okay.
Most likely.
But it also uses higher bandwidth too.
Well, yeah, the bandwidth, it depends on your network bandwidth. I'm talking about more in the processing, the processor of the PBX. That's what we can handle. If you have a low bandwidth, then that's a different issue. But at least what the PBX
Okay,
is
so
capable.
the Grandstream's not constrained by bandwidth then?
Correct. Yes. I mean, there's some table that you can Google it, so you know the bandwidth requirement for each call based on each codec. But in my opinion, today everybody has 1 meg, 2 megs bandwidth available. All right. So for signaling and control, for the VoIP protocol that we normally use is SIP, because this is an Asterix appliance, PBX. We using the native proprietary IAX codec So there are some service providers in Canada that they use IAX. So feel free to enable that option in the PBX. But again, all the Grandstream phones, we use SIP only. We don't have any development at all for the IAX. This is something that comes with the PBX already. But it's good to know that the UCM can support both SIP and IAX. For DTMF method, we support the typical ones in audio, RFC2833, and SIP info. For provisioning and plug and play, we use the typical protocol HTTP, HTTPS, and TFTP. And then the auto discovery option that I mentioned before, Grandstream 0 config. And network protocols, all typical network protocols, including DNS, which we just added recently. Now, for SIP trunking and endpoint registrations, this is the limitation for SIP trunking, up to 50. This is a small appliance for targeting the SMBs, really small SMBs, but 50 SIP trunks should be enough. We have a new PBX, which is a PRI. It has a PRI or T1 Ethernet interface. That's the UCM6100. That one has a little more robust CPU. That one can have up to 2,000 registrations and 200 simultaneous calls. But again, this is more for the 6100, where you can have up to 50 SIP trunks or 500 SIP registrations.
Are you talking about the SIP channels or
Yeah.
because registration and channels is two different things?
Yes, it's registration only. Meaning that you can have up to 500 SIP extensions.
No, I'm talking about the trunk.
SIP trunking. SIP trunking per se, I mean, we have a menu that you can add trunks, so you can have up to 50.
Yeah, but to answer your question, yeah, if you allow me, Mr. Like, if you're using our SIP trunks, now, you know, my marketing stuff, if you're using our SIP trunks, like, you know, one SIP trunk, let's say we give you 50 channels, that's only counted as one SIP trunk at Grandstream PBX.
Really?
Right.
So
Right.
that was your question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not 50 channels, actually 50 registrations.
50
So
different providers.
50 different accounts. Maybe you have 2 accounts with the same provider, but if you have like each registration is considered SIP trunk. But how many channels within the same SIP trunk? You can have as many unless
You can
it's
register the simultaneous call.
exactly when you hit the simultaneous calls, the bandwidth of the device, then you're stuck.
So that's
But
what-
in
that's
terms
the
of
limitation.
registration, yes, you can have 50 with as many channels as your provider gives you.
Okay, that's a bit different.
I see.
And is there a limit on the number of subscriptions?
Subscriptions for
Such as BLF? or
ELF,
SLA or-
would apply to the same as 500 SIP registrations. So if you have 500 endpoints, then the PBX can handle up to 500 subscriptions for BLF.
Okay, but you often have more than one subscription per endpoint.
Yeah, but that's counting. So normally with 500 or any extension, we have a typical number that each individual endpoint can handle, not only for registration, but all whatever
Okay,
is
so the
included.
500 is cool.
Right.
Okay.
So 500 maximum for everything. That is included in that registration. Conference bridges. The small appliance, you can have up to 3 password protected conference bridges that can allow up to 25 attendees or simultaneous participants, right? The large appliance, you can have up to 6 password protected conference bridges, and you can have up to 32 simultaneous participants. Call center features, we have the call queue. Yes, sir.
25 participants per bridge. So you can actually.
In total, in all the bridges. Just remember, it's basically like as concurrent calls. So then we're going back to the concurrent call limitation. Call center feature has some nice call center features like a call queue. You have a nice interface that you can see the waiting time, the agents logged in. We're going to go over that later. Basically, you can have multiple call queues that can be configured. automatic call distribution, based on experience, availability, number of call answer, and call waiting time announcement to the agents. IVRs, I mean, you can have multiple IVRs, but one IVR can have up to 5 sub-menus, let's say. I think it's 10. I need to double check that.
10 total?
10 total IVRs. Yes.
You have, under call center, would you not include things like whisper and barge and so on?
We just added actually recently in the latest firmware, and we're going to go over that when doing a call queue. Calling features, I mean, I don't want to go over all of them. We're going to be doing hands-on on each individual, but I'm just going to mention the nice new features that we just added. I mean, for the IVR, of course, every PBX is an IVR, but the nice thing is that the UCM, you can upload your own recordings. You can do a nice professional recording and then upload it to the PBX. You can do like, you can record something from your phone and upload it to the PBX. Whatever announcements or recording that you upload, then you can use them for IVR, for music on hold, bring back tones, things like that. All these basic features, normally an endpoint supported, right? Like a DND, call forwarding, call queue, call park. These are typical features that apply to a phone. However, the PBX has a nice option that you can turn off the local features of the phone and utilize either speed dial or pressing start code via DTMF. So basically, during a call, the UCM is listening to the RTP in order to catch a DTMF. So when someone presses a DTMF, and this is a call feature that the PBX support, then the UCM is going to interact and do the call feature to call transfer or DND or whatever the start code applies to. A good example is call parking. For the typical start code or feature code is #72. So if you are in a call, if you press #72 for a speed dial, then the phone is sending the DTMF, the UCM is going to understand that this call needs to be parked, and then it's going to transfer it automatically.
Same thing for call
providing
recording.
a prompt.
Same thing for call recording, silent record.
Right,
And that,
correct.
if you're in a lawyer's office, you do a silent record bang, right?
Yes, I mean the call recording, we have a call feature, so this is more like a on the fly or call recording that during a call you want to press a button and want to record that one particular, then you're going to be using a call feature. But there are other options, and I'm going to show you later that you can record everything coming from one particular extension, or you want to record everything going through a particular trunk. We're going to talk about that.
The event was BLF. Is that supported on the Grandstream phones as well?
Yes.
And what's the difference between that and regular BLF?
Sorry?
What's the difference between that and regular BLF?
Non-regular BLF? Oh,
Like a
no.
normal BLF.
Yeah.
What can event list do that regular BLF can't?
Oh yeah, well the event, I mean, if you have a large deployment, let's say 100 extensions, and you're using BLF, then basically the UCM or the PBX is sending the status of all 100 extensions to each individual phone. That's a big packet.
Yeah.
That's a lot of traffic. When most of the time, one phone is monitoring only 5, 10 other extensions. So why the phone needs to receive all these statuses for extension that is not monitoring? Then you can, if you have a large deployment, then you can use that event list, which the phone is going to subscribe to a particular group, saying to the PBA, send the status for only these 5 or 10 extensions. And then the PBA is going to send a small packet with the status of those extensions only. So we support both. We support a plain BLF and the event list BLF.
Okay, so you would need to assign event list BLF for every member of that list. Like say if there's 5 members on that list, then you would have to program in that event list for 5 buttons on the
It's
phone.
super easy. In the web interface of the UCM, you go to the event list and create the groups. So for example, you create support group, and then you add all the members of that group. And then on the phone, you go to the event list URI and enter the support as the group number, and that's it. The phone's going to start by subscribing to the PBX. requesting the status for only the support group.
So how does it populate it on the phone then?
Well, you need to configure then the BLF buttons.
Okay, I've just never used event list before.
Gotcha.
And I've seen it mentioned all over the place, so I was just wondering first.
Actually, all our phones, I don't know what phone you have, but if you have a phone with BLF, actually the hard key buttons, we call them MPK, which is a stand for multi-purpose keys. It's because they can do BLF, event list, speed dial, DTMF, call parking, a lot of modes, right? So depending on your scenario, you want to use that one.
So I'm sorry, I promised everybody that from the first minute we're gonna go hands-on training on the PBX. So I'm not sure
Yeah,
how you're
almost
doing
done.
with that. Yeah, so just gonna keep my promise to everybody. So we're gonna right, Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Multi-language, that's another nice feature that PBX support basically. You can have, obviously, the recordings that you can make it in any language that you want, right? You can upload it to the PBX. However, the system has what we call system prompts. So error messages, when you're calling and the number is busy or you dial a wrong number, then this type of messages that PBX is providing to the user can be configured in different languages. You can even have an office, for example, split it like this. This side, this department, for example, you want to be using French, and the other side, or the other departments, you want them to be using English. So you can configure that. So when people dialing and getting an error message, you're going to get the language that you configure. By default, the system prompts are obviously in English, in Chinese, and there's an option that you can download a list of multiple languages from Grandstream server. This is an automated process. You select the language, and that language package is going to come down to the PBX. All right. So for network, we do typical 802.1x. Firewall, the 6102 has some firewall rules, and you can play with it for security reasons. Application, for example, for security, you need to enable fail to ban. That's an application highly recommended in case you have your PBX connected directly to the public network. We use AES 128 for encryption, for data transmission. A nice option that is enabled by default, which when you create an extension, the system is generating a random, complex random generated password, zip password. So I highly recommend you keeping that option enabled. And of course, we use SRTP and TLS in case you want to secure the communication. So before getting into the hands-on, little description of a typical setup, multi-offices deployment. You can have one PBX in the main headquarters, another PBX in a branch, and this is the analog connection. For example, you have an FXS fax machine connected directly to the PBX. Then via internet you can peer a second PBX. So phones over here can connect or can communicate with phones on the headquarters, and that's something that we're going to be doing today. And SIP trunk providers, you can have in the main office, you can have the PSTN lines connected, and at the same time you can add a couple of SIP trunks and connect it to the main PBX. So when people calling from the remote branch to a number in the SIP trunk, that call is going to go to the main PBX and then connect to the SIP trunk. This is a nice, if you have any customer that they have analog phones deployment, like a call center, for example, and they want to move to IP PBXs, then sometimes they say, I'd rather to keep my analog phones. They have tons of analog phones, and then you can use an ATA or a gateway, so you can keep the analog phones, and eventually, as the company grows, they're going to start buying IP phones from you. So you can have the analog phones connected to a GSW or a gateway. That gateway is connected to the Grandstream PBX, and then all the phones are basically converted into VoIP. The gateway we have gateway from 1 port up to 48 ports. Each individual port can be registered individually to the PBX. So, for example, a 48 port gateway can have 48 independent extensions. And in a typical modern IP office, so you can have IP phones, IP cameras, everything connected directly to the PBX. All right, so you can have multiple offices as well in different countries, so you can peer them all together. That's not an issue, and then from each branch or each country can call to another country by using the internet. Now, so in the live, in the hands-on, we're going to be doing installation. We're going to be doing network settings, system settings, creating extension, the zero config. We're going to do some conference bridges, IVRs, and as I said before, during this process, I'm going to expand more to be more specific. All right, so I bet you have access to your PBX. The IP address of the PBX is 2.1. So obviously to connect the phone connected on the LAN port of the UCM, and then your laptop connected on the PC port of the phone.
Oh, thank you.
I don't have one.
So everyone ready? Sure. Ready?
Everybody's ready? Anybody needs any help? Go ahead, Ernesto. I'll help us.
Okay. All right. So basically, this is the status page. Briefly, I'm going to mention that from the status page, you can see the status of the trunks. Sorry, I'm going to.
Is it just the one person that can log in?
Now we added more multiple users. You can have the administrator or the full admin. I'm sorry, the administrator. We call it full admin, and then the users. That one you need to check out the latest firmware.
Yeah, so can we do that right now?
Yeah. Now in the 8.12 or 9.23, which is the beta, we're done. You need to create a profile first. I think that one is over settings. Here, yeah, settings, user manager. All right, so from the status page, now you can see the trunk status. Basically, if you have zip trunks, I recommend you to enable the option enable quality. So basically the PBX is pinging the zip server. And when the server is down, you're going to see it here red. And at the same time, the system, if you enable that option, is going to send you a notification. So we're going to go over the notifications in a bit. Then on the right hand side, you can see the conference that are happening at the moment. Every time that you click on one of these options, it's going to take you to the menu for that particular feature. If there would be a conference happening now, then you can see here how many participants, their caller IDs, the duration. And if you go into the conference room menu, then you have more options, like you can invite somebody else, you can kick out anyone, you can mute someone. So you have those options. For interface status, you can see the status of your USB drive, SD drive, LAN 1, FXS. FXS, if you're not configured, I mean, depending on the color, you can see that they are not configured. FXO, if you don't have a line connected, you can see it from here instead of going to the physical location. If the line is in use, you can see it, I believe, amber color. And then the extension statuses, you can see them here. Now, we added an option not too long ago that in a nice graphical way, you can see it. So if you make a call, you're seeing that you're going to see the extension that is making the call, what number is dialing, and if I would be using a trunk, you will see what trunk the call is going through. For call queue features from this menu, you can also hang up that particular call, or barge or monitor that conversation. When you click here, then you need to enter your extension, and then the UCM is going to connect the call to you. For system status, you can see general information like the main part number, firmware version. I have the 923, which is we just released it as the beta firmware. For the network, you can see the MAC of both interfaces. And for storage, remember this one has a 4 gigabytes of space. It's kind of divided between partition, configuration partition and data partition. This is a nice one. So basically, you can see the resources of the moment for the CPU and the memory. This is good for when customers are complaining about some audio quality. So you want to know if it's the UCM issue, network issue, service provider issue. So obviously, if you see CPU usage higher than 80%, then probably the PBX is being overloaded. Otherwise, then it could be something in the network. So this is a nice option that I recommend. Basically, this is the alert log. So if any event is happening, it's going to be listed right here. If you have multiple events, then you can sort it out by the name, type, or date. Now, in the alert event list, you can turn on multiple events. For example, this usage. When this is getting full, if you turn that alert on, first of all, it's going to be logged in the alert log, and then you have a second option that says email notification. If you turn that on also, then you're going to receive an email when this is getting full. Of course, you can enter some criteria like, what do you think is full, like 80%, 90% maybe. Memory usage, a system reboot. Every time that you reboot the system, it's going to send you an alert. When you update the firmware, system crash. This is one that I like. If you enable the fail to ban, so when your PBX is being compromised or someone is trying to hack into it, the fail to ban is going to ban that IP, but at the same time it's going to notify you. I don't recommend enabling multiple events because, this is a PBX. If you have a lot of traffic, then sometimes maybe trigger multiple events and then you're going to start receiving a lot of emails. Just enable whatever you think is more convenient or more important for you. And then here you enter the email addresses. You can have up to 5 emails. And by the way, the PBX is ready to send emails. You don't have to configure it. It's using MTA, so simple way of sending emails. Some ISPs, they may block it. some email servers may flag it as a spam, so keep an eye on that. Otherwise, just register with your own email server.
So it comes pre-registered?
Hmm?
It comes pre-registered with the, as a
No, it's basically using MTA. MTA, you don't need any registration, nothing. Basically, the UCM starts sending the emails without any subscription to any email server.
Oh, cool.
It works fine. In my case, most of the time it's okay.
Do you name the PBX so that you know where it's coming from?
Yes. Yeah, there's a way that you can edit the email subjects in the body. Now in the CDR menu, we have, this is a graphical way that you can get all the recordings, all the logs. With the typical information like start time, call from, call to, answer by. The call to is important, so that you're going to see there the zip trunk that was used. And something very nice is that you have these icons over here. For example, if that call was recorded, then you click there in the play recording file, it's going to download it, and it's going to play it for you. Or you can delete it. Now, obviously, you can have a lot of data here, so you can download the records. It's going to be downloaded into a CSV file, Excel, and then you can import that file to your reporting system or billing system in case you want to, expand more or do more billing features. Now, because eventually you may have some calls recorded, some calls not recorded, it's easier to kind of sort it out. Then we added this second option, second menu, that you can see only specifically the call recording. And again, all the call recordings are stored. There's another menu that I'm going to show you later. Where do you want to store the recordings? Either locally in the PBX flash or in your external drive, USB or SD drive. I don't have any data here. This is a nice interface that can tell you, for example, if you have a zip trunk provider with only 5 channels. So at some point you want to know how many times you have reached the maximum capacity. So by selecting here, for example, outbound calls to your zip, then it's going to show you the simultaneous calls that were reached at some point. If you see that the 5 is kind of getting too frequent, then it's time for you to add more channels to your zip trunk provider. Or if you have only PSTN or FXO lines, then it's time to add more FXOs. But in general, you can also see in a graphical way statistics for ring group, for your call queue, for a particular extension. This is something that is very nice. Now the CDRs, we added not too long ago. Basically, as I said before, the UCM is like a closed environment. It's running after it, but we don't have a command line. We don't have any, AEMI or Afterix management interfaces because obviously it's a Grandstream product. However, per customer's request, specifically for the CDR, we add an API. So in case you have a customer like a hotel, they have a billing system already, then you can open up an API. You can create your credentials or authentications, and then pass that to the billing system, and the billing system is going to be requesting the CDR records at any time. There's another option that we're going to be going over later that you can program. It's a backup option. So basically you can do a manual backup, download everything, put it on the SD drive or USB flash, or you can configure the UCM to push all the configuration to the network, to an FTP server. So in that backup, you have also the CDRs included. All right, so now let's get into the PBX. we're going to talk about the zero config. So the zero config comes in 3 different levels. The first level that is enabled by default is the one that we think most of the users are going to be they're going to be using, right? Is basically you need to create a batch of extensions first. Let's say 10 extensions. Then you go to the zero config. Actually, this is a good example. Actually, we're going to create a batch in a few, but I have already. I created a batch of about 10 extensions, right? So let me show you this first. So in order to create a batch of extensions, remember we use zip and IIX, but our phones support zip only. So you hit zip, and then you basically enter here the amount of extensions that you want to create, the starting range, and if you want to include a password, a default password for all these 5 extensions, you can enter it here. And you can specify a little more, like a voicemail password, a little bit of the settings. We're going to go over each individual settings later. The codecs, and then when you click create users, basically it's going to create these extensions. Right. So now let's go to the menus of the extensions. So let's talk about, obviously the extension has been created already. You can also specify a caller ID number. So if you want something else besides 1000, you can enter here. Permissions. So this is how the UCM handles the permissions. Basically it's like a flag. For this particular extension, I'm using national. So eventually when I create my trunk, I'm going to assign a permission to that trunk. So if the extension has national, and you can see here all the permission levels, and my trunk has international permission, then this extension can call a national number, no problem. However, if I have, for example, internal, and my trunk has, no, my bad, I think the previous example was incorrect. If I have this extension with national, and my zip trunk is with national or less, then the code is okay. However, if the zip trunk has a higher permission, like international, and the extension national, so there's a mismatch, and then the code is not going to go. Same example applies for internal. So if the extension has internal permission and the zip trunk has something higher, then the code is not going to go. So normally for US or North America dialing, 10 digits number, I like to name it as national. Then you can specify the password over here. As I said before, the system is going to automatically generate a complex password for you.
But how else would you restrict the phone from dialing? You have to have certain extensions nationals and certain international, and the SIP trunk is always international. And there's definitely kind of a mismatch because of my extension that should not dial international, okay, you set to national, and that's how I would restrict it.
Right. In case you have only one trunk, you mean?
Because I only have one.
Yeah, in case you have only one trunk, that you can use that one for everything.
Yeah.
But then you have multiple extensions, and some of them are going to be national only, some of them are going to be internal, some of them are going to be international.
Yeah.
Then in the trunk, when we create a trunk, you have another option to bypass the permission level and assign a group of extensions that can use this particular pattern. So, or pattern in this case. So when dialing a 011 pattern or a 10-digit number pattern, then we're going to go with that. So based on the pattern, we can detect and assign or authorize a group of extensions. So we're going to go over that later. Now, hot desking. This is what we call also public mode. basically, you can enable this option in the phone. This is when you have a phone that is in a public area. So obviously you don't want anyone to start using it. So the phone is going to be logged out. So only the employees, they have the user and password, they can basically enter it. And then the phone is going to register with the PBX, and so they can make calls. Obviously, I mean, the user and password that the phone requires is basically the same SIP user and password. So when you enter that in the phone, it's basically entering the user ID and the password, and the phone gets registered. So you can have multiple, you can enter multiple user IDs in case you have, multiple employees. The thing is that obviously the password, they need to be numeric passwords. So if you configure the system to only, actually it's giving me a warning right now, it's in red color or pink color. If you have the complex generated password, then when you enter a numeric password, it's not going to let you, unless you enable this option. When you enable this option, then you can enter a numeric password. For Authenticate ID, you can also create something else besides the 1000. And remember, all the Grandstream phones, they have both fields, user ID and Authenticate ID.
You don't need to put that in now, right?
You don't need to, yeah. But in case you want to kind of secure more, for remote extensions, I would do that. Obviously, I mean, that means if you have a remote extension, that means that the PBX is exposed to the public network. Obviously, you always need to change the port number. We're going to talk about that later. But I would use an Authenticate ID also for the remote extensions.
How about with the hot testing? You need that?
Good question. Actually, no. See?
Very straightforward.
Right. And then the voicemail, you can enable it or disable it from here and enter the voicemail password. I mean, the interface has a nice kind of warning every time that you enter numbers like this, it won't let you. So when you click save, it's going to tell you, the format that you need to enter the passwords. Skip voicemail password verification. So, when you're calling the voicemail, which is *97, the UCM knows that this is the phone that is calling from this particular extension. So the system of the UCM is going to ask you to enter the voicemail password, unless if you check this option, the system is not going to. So basically, when pressing the envelope button, you go directly through the voicemail menu. We added this option not too long ago. Basically, you can now, all information that you enter here, the first name, the last name, that's going to be part of the caller ID. But most important, the email address. So when you receive your voicemails, if you have this is an FXS extension, when you receive a fax, then it's going to be send it to your email that you enter here. There's another option I'm going to show you out of this menu, that if you have a cell phone, actually Grandstream, we just launched a cell phone for Android, we call it Grandstream Wave. So the email address that you have here, there's another option, outside of this menu, that you can select the extension, click send via email, meaning that the system is going to send to this email all the information in a QR code. Actually, in a plain text. In addition to that, there's a QR code. So the Android Grandstream Wave, basically you scan the QR code, and then the soft phone gets provisioned automatically. So you don't have to enter the server IP, the password, nothing like that. Or in case you have a remote extension, just a typical Grandstream phone, it's easy to just click the email option, and then the employee is going to receive an email with the settings.
Excuse me. So it's the QR code. Can you go over that? How do you scan that if it shows up on your phone?
Got it. So, like this. So you enter an email address on the extension, right? So then, let's say that you have an employee or yourself, extension 1005, you're gonna be using your Grandstream Wave cell phone on your cell phone, right? So basically, you check out this option and then email to user. When you click here, basically it's gonna generate an email, send it to you. In that email, you have all the credentials, in plain text, and at the same time a QR code. So when you receive that in your computer or your smartphone, you can scan the QR code and the phone gets provisioned.
Now, when it sends it sends the local IP address, like 192.168.1 or 2, whatever it is, 30. But if you're an extension that's outside of the building.
Yeah, good point. Most likely for a GS mobile phone, right? That is outside. So there's an option in internal, I believe here, SIP settings, that you can enter the external IP address. So just for the system to know what is its public IP.
So where would you put this in where?
Yep, right here. It's not okay. Thank you.
Right, this is there. Oh, okay. So you'd have to have it in there. Now, what happens if do you have to have a static IP for that to work?
Yes.
You can't
Yes.
do it through some sort of,
I mean, you can do DNS on your switch, on your router side, but the UCM doesn't support that.
so you can't
So
use
you
it.
need to have a static IP with your ISP.
And where's the field that you're putting that?
I'm trying to find that.
Okay, but if you're using a stun server, it should automatically populate.
No, but we're talking about more for the email generation. So that email, basically, the UCM is generating an email with the SIP server or the PBX IP address, the user ID, the password. So that IP, if you're local, it's going to be the local IP. But if you have a remote extension, then the UCM needs to know what is its public IP. So I'm trying to find that menu that you can let the PBX know what is the public IP. I believe it's this one, but don't quote me. I need to double check that in a few. So we call it NAT IP.
The bind IP address is so you can bind it to a particular interface. So if your LAN IP address has more than one IP address.
Correct. So I think it's that option. Oh, maybe here.
Is this
Okay,
for
right
connecting
here.
from outside?
Yeah, so basically in the external IP here where you enter, the static, I mean it needs to be a static IP that you have, right? So when generating these emails, then we're gonna include, you know what, in that email we include both. We include the local because at that point we don't know if the extension is remote or external. So it's up to the user that they can enter either one.
And that has to be in IP job for
All right, so back to the extensions. Now we added in the 8.12, I believe, or in 9.23, the UCM used to have only one profile, the admin profile, but in the 8.12 firmware, we added the super admin and the admin. So now you can have multiple administrators. And then in the latest firmware, 9.23, you can have users. So basically, this is the password. So the user of extension 1000 can go to his browser, go to the PBX, and make basic changes pertaining to that extension only.
So not check the voicemail.
Yep, you can check voicemail, you can download the MP3 files, faxes. By the way, the UCM convert voicemail into MP3 and faxes into PDF.
So you can't send faxes.
Yes, this is keep an eye on this one, Bashar. So no, we didn't send faxes until the latest firmware, 9.23. However, I still don't like it because yes, you can log in as an administrator, and now you have an interface that you can upload the PDF, enter the number, and send it out. But guess what? It's not in the user interface. which most likely that's going to happen, right? So I bet in the next firmware we're going to correct that.
One would only hope.
But that's going to be competing with our online fax. But that's fine.
All right, languages. Remember I mentioned about you can have one particular extension with different languages. So actually let's jump a little bit to the language menu. I don't have internet, but I'll show you.
Well, if you want to, well, I asked for the cable.
It's okay, no, not a big deal. So again, this is for certain prompts. It has English and Chinese by default. If you click check prompt list, basically the UCM is going to connect to the Grandstream server, and you're going to see a bunch of languages, a list of languages. Obviously, I don't have internet, so I don't see anything. So when you see the list, on the right-hand side, you have a download button. You click that language package, and then the language is going to be added here. Super simple. And then in the extension itself, you can select the language that you prefer. Music on hold. I'm going to be going over about music on hold and announcement of recordings, basically. So when I get to the point of music on hold, basically you can create multiple of group. We call them classes. So the default class, for example, has I believe, a group of 5 audio recordings. So the music on hold is going to be playing all these 5 files. However, by default now we have the second music on hold, which is basically a ringback tone. So if you enable that, when you press the hold button, the other part is going to hear only ringback tone. That one is good for ring groups. So, no, call queue, sorry. So when you are in the call queue, normally you're going to listen to the music on hold, unless if you enable the ringback tone, then people's going to hear typical ringback tone.
Why is the user password so ridiculous?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Is that just to access your phone, right?
just to access your extension profile via the web.
Right.
So people can
You
change
can change,
password.
yeah, you can
disable
change
your
it
extension.
to digits, can't you?
Yeah, I've already changed them on mine. I just wondered why it's so insane. Yeah.
I mean, this is what is automatically generated. You
Do you
can
need
always
that if
change
you
it.
like if you start going into your phone from your phone? Is that what that's for?
No. This is to log in from a web browser
Oh, okay.
to your extension, to your profile.
Okay.
So you can do some call forwarding, you can
Okay.
enable some time condition, download your voice messages.
What firmware are you using right now in there?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I know that you have, yes, but it's a good opportunity, that's why I wanted to do it. So you have the latest framework, 8.12. We just released the 9.23 as the beta firmware. So,
No longer beta.
sorry?
It's live now.
Oh yeah. Good, last week, or beginning of this week. So,
Tuesday.
last week when I told Bashar what firmware to you guys to use, 8.12 was the official firmware. So anyhow, the good thing is that now you can see the advantage or the new stuff that is in the 9.23. So anything that you see here, that you don't have it here, those are the new additions to the 9.23.
When you think it's a good time to stop for a break, you know.
Yep. 7 more minutes.
How do you check to see the status project?
All right, so this is the media tab.
Seriously does.
So all the extensions by default, they have the NAT option enabled. I mean, if you have an internal extension, it doesn't matter. But for sure, if you have a remote extension, you need to enable this option. This is to make it more friendly with NATs. So basically, the PBX is checking with the Stone server, the public IP for outbound calls or things like that. But if it's an internal extension, it won't hurt to keep this option enabled. These are typical asterisk options, can reinvite, meaning once the the call is connected, then the RTP is going to go from endpoint to endpoint. If you keep it in no like this, then the RTP is going from endpoint to the PBX, from the PBX to the endpoint. So for an internal deployment, keep it in no. For a remote extension, multiple remote extensions, then you can keep it in yes. So if you have two remote extensions, when they make a call each other, the RTP is not going to the PBX, but between themselves. So these are the typical DTMF mode that we support. The keep alive is a nice option for remote extensions in case you have a NAT issue. Sometimes the NATs, they close the ports for you. When you enable the keep alive, basically the PBX is sending a zip option packet to the phone every 20 seconds, I believe. Oh, here it's configurable. For some third-party phones, they require the caller ID to be in a different format. The TellURI is a format that the PBX support also. The Grandstream phones, by the way, I think now they support it as well, but this is a specific caller ID format that some vendors or some other IP phones they support.
What should you have in security?
Secure?
No, under re-invite.
Oh, insecure. So basically, not talking about NAT, you have three options: port, very secure, or no secure. When you have port, then you can enter. Remember the IP that you the NAT IP that you enter in the other menu. Then in all the SIP signaling, we're going to include that IP with the port number. I'm not too sure. That one, let me see, every time that I connect my...
So if you have an external extension, what would you recommend to things set to?
No, definitely the NAT. With this option, enable the NAT, that should be it.
Yes, secure.
But for the secure, I would keep it as very, as port. Because at that point, the UCM is not checking with the Stone server to see what is the public IP. You are always using a fixed IP address, which is the one that you enter in the internal options that I showed you before.
You can connect to the internet through the wireless.
Perfect. Well, we're going to take a break in a few minutes.
So you can put in NAT and it's an internal extension, that's a no-no?
No, it should work still because the PBX is going to include the local IP anyways.
But you don't have to, right?
By default, it's enabled.
Oh, by default.
By default, it's enabled, so it won't hurt if you have internal extensions. This one applies more for external remote extensions. SRTP, obviously to encrypt the media. I recommend, RTP, anyone can do that. Most of the phones, they support that. But I recommend you also to encrypt the signaling protocol. SIP, you can encrypt it by using TLS. There's another menu that we're going to go over later. So you can put your credential certificate so you can encrypt also the signaling. So, because if you encrypt the media only, but the SIP is not encrypted, then someone can spoof the SIP packets. They can see at least where the port is going to be connected from into.
They can't hear the conversation, right?
Well, they can still, because SRTP is using an encryption that is easy to break. But what I'm saying is, if you really want to secure the conversation, then you better use SRTP and TLS. TLS is another option that we're going to go over in a few. So for fax, if you have an extension, ATA for example, that you have a fax machine connected to it, then you can convert that into a fax detection. So basically the UCM is listening constantly for the fax tones. Now this is a nice option if you want to add more layers of security in case you have a PBX exposed to the public network. So besides the security option that I'm going to be talking later, like fail to ban, firewall, etc., changing the seed port from 5060 to something else, you can also set a strategy, rules, for each individual extension. For example, if you have 100 extension deployment, and out of those 100 extensions, you have 10 remote, right? So if you enable local subnet, that means that this particular extension is going to register only from within the network, right? So if the requests are coming from another network, like a remote extension, like a SIP attacker, then we're going to reject it regardless. We're not going to even check authenticated password. So my recommendation is if you have 100 deployments, 10 remote extensions, so you're going to enable this option, local subnet only, to all 90 local extensions. Because you know that they're going to be coming from within your network.
So you can't use a soft phone? then?
Correct.
Okay.
But if you're using a cell phone or a remote extension to only 10 out of the 100, then to only those 10, you obviously need to allow them all. So in an 100 extension deployment, you're going to have only 10 extensions vulnerable instead of 100. So that's kind of one of my recommendations for this type of deployment. All right, so we left over the features. So I mean, from the extension menu, you can also, create some call traffic, some feature code, meaning call forwarding unconditionally, call forward no answer. So you can enter the extension that you want to forward, right? Depending on the condition. You can do, this is a nice option that we enabled it not too long ago. Call camp, I believe we call it. So basically when you enable this option, when you call it from extension A to extension B is busy. Then extension A can dial a start code. So when extension B is available, the UCM is going to connect the calls automatically. You need to enable that option, then you need to know the start code. There's another menu. That start code is configurable. I believe it's start 22.
Where do you find the start code?
There's a menu for that. We can go there.
There's the start code?
Later.
Okay.
Read simultaneously. So this is something that we added. I mean, we have the follow me, but this is maybe something you can try. So basically, the read simultaneously is when you are working in a different queue, right? You move to another location. Your main extension, for example, this is extension 1000. People calling into a 1000. The system is going to send another call, like if this is a ring group, for example, to the external number that you enter here. So that's in case, let me rephrase, in case you are working remote or working on the street at that point and you have your cell phone, then people dialing to 1000, it's going to ring your cell phone as well.
Let's say you
Outbound
had,
transfer.
let's say,
Code transfer. What do you mean?
It's like an outbound transfer, transferring the call outbound to your cell phone.
Ring both at the same time?
Yeah, simultaneous.
Well, it's going to reach simultaneously both. Whatever hits
Okay.
first, then it's going to connect there.
Okay.
so if you had follow me
We did.
to go to another extension and that to bring the same time to the
please.
cell phone, will it work?
One at a time.
Yeah.
I think this follow me is going to override this.
One destination at a time.
However, in follow me, you don't have the ringing simultaneously. That's why follow me, right? It's going to ring here, then there, then there.
Yeah, but with the,
You know.
any plans to put an extension and an external number in there?
That's a good one. By the way, I like this type of training. We do a lot of training, especially in Boston, and sometimes we come to visit our partners and do the training here locally in Toronto or other countries, other cities. And I like to take this type of feedback. I have my list, my cheat sheet, taking notes, and believe me, within a few months, the type of feedback that I receive, you're gonna see it in a new framework. So I'm gonna take note of that.
Ernesto, I've told them, like, during the break that last year when we were in Boston, we went, like, a few resellers from MKN Group and the resellers, we went to the head office. And I think Okab and Bernard were there. Everything that the resellers asked for, everything, I mean it when I say everything, it's already in the PBX right now.
So could you go with the follow me and then to it?
Yeah.
Then you
It
go
makes
to
sense.
sign things?
So what happens
So
if,
from 1000, 1001, and then on 1001 it goes simultaneous at that point? It can be sort of both that way.
so what happens if your,
No, follow
like
me
your voice,
first.
like your extensions ring simultaneously, your internal extensions ring 4 times and go to voicemail,
My turn
but your cell phone takes about 5 or 6.
Right.
So once it grabs the voicemail, it's gonna end there, isn't it?
Well, no, the follow me has an option by default, which you can turn off, by the way. It has an option that when someone pick up, it's gonna say, please press 1 to accept the call. So at that point, until the UCM receives the 1 via DTMF, we're gonna connect the outreach. Otherwise, if we don't receive the 1, we're gonna move to the next
Like
number.
the way I've got mine set up, because I only want one voicemail box.
Yeah,
When
that's what I mean.
when you call my extension at the office, if it doesn't answer there, then it calls my extension at my house. And if it doesn't answer there, then it calls my cell phone. And if I don't answer, it goes to my cell phone.
That's like 4 minutes or
No, it's follow me.
Or follow me.
Follow me. It's on follow me.
You can preset the amount of time
Yeah.
at each location.
Oh, okay. So I'm just thinking it's ringing simultaneously.
Yeah, so it's
right?
Yeah.
So that's a totally different
Is
set.
there
of
a feature like that with 911 where it'll automatically cancel a call if all the lines are busy, so that the person can make a 911 call?
No, we don't have that.
Are you going to add that feature?
Yeah, that's in the roadmap. Basically, for emergency dialing, we're gonna have an option that you can, first of all, include the emergency number for the country, and then we're gonna take priority for that particular number. Every time people
So
dial,
if there's no lines open
and
and
there's no line, yeah, right, we're gonna drop it and
Okay.
connect that one. That one's in the
So wouldn't you
roadmap.
use the ring group if you do simultaneous ringing for the extension?
No, in the room group, only internal extensions.
That was the problem.
Yeah, it was happening.
You couldn't put the external number.
Oh, so you can't even put like
Because I've
external
got,
number and a
I work
sign?
from home half the day. So when I
Like
come
you
to the
can't-
office,
like you
I want
cannot
to throw my
create
external
PBX?
extension.
Where, here?
Yeah.
In this
No,
menu?
like on the ring group,
No, ring group, you have a list of extensions that you can select.
but you can't put in like a 10-digit number with a pound sign?
No, not in the ring group, but that one you can do it on the following.
And the problem also with the ring group is now, let's say everybody, I've published my extension as 200. Now I have to tell everybody my extension is 300, let's say, because that's the ring group extension, to ring everything else.
You know
So
what I
it's-
did, actually, you're right.
It's a pain in the ass.
No, I did it the other way around, because I knew from the beginning that I was gonna have that limitation with this PBX. So when I installed the PBX in the office, my extension is 3 digits, 1, 2, 3, right? So instead of creating an extension 1, 2, 3, I created a ring group 1, 2, 3, and then added a bunch of extensions.
That's if you knew that at the beginning.
It
But, you know, once because I took one PBX system and now instead of like if I go into an office, they already have their extension numbers. I don't want to recreate their extension numbers, so we'll replace the PBX, but if their extension is 221, the new one will be 221.
And by the way, all this is because of the limitation of Asterix. Asterix 1.3, they have a limitation of multiple registration. They cannot do that. And the next, the 13 version, they're gonna allow multiple registrations. So you're gonna forget about all this stuff.
And when's that coming?
At the end of the year, I think. They just announced it at the beginning of the year, so we're gonna have it at the end of the year, I believe.
And so what does multiple registrations
With
mean?
only one registration, you can have multiple phones registered with that particular extension number.
Oh, okay.
So you can have
have
a
a
cell
cell
phone,
No, I understand.
Oh, that's all.
and they're all gonna be ringing
That's
at
all
the same time.
extension?
So basically, you can have that guy from the Middle East register on there and make a bunch of free phone calls, and your local extension won't do them up.
something like that, yeah.
Before or after they go up. Be careful with what arrows you're putting me.
All right, so let's get into the good stuff. Again, all the options, I mean, let me talk about this. So call recording. Call recordings are, you can set it in 3 different ways. You can have a particular extension to be recorded every single call by enabling this option. You can have a SIP trunk or a trunk, enable that option, so every single call going through that trunk is going to be recorded. Or you can use a start code on the phone to start recording like on demand, like at that time only. It's going to be recorded on the PBX. So you press that start code, it's going to be
Do you
recorded.
have to enable that extension to be able to record?
No, you need to enable actually the start code, because in different states or countries, they're not allowed to. So call center, for example, they are allowed to record the outbound, sometimes not the inbound. So depending on the situation, that start code, when we get to the start code menu, you can configure, I think it's start 3, to work as recording the inbound only, the outbound only, or both. So basically when you press that button, it's going to do the recording.
Quick question, when the space is filled up from recording, does it, what does the system do? Does it record over, or does it explode?
First of all, you're going to get an email notification, and the system, you have 2 options, either stop recording or override the old stuff.
And that's on the new phones, don't you have a record button?
Yes, it's a soft key. That one, I mean, remember the phones, when they detect a UCM, a Grandstream PBX, they're going to automatically configure some soft keys that works with the Grandstream PBX only. And the call recording is one of them. Basically, it's not going to be recorded locally on the phone. It's a start code. It's like a speed dial.
But you have it on the 1610, is it, the new one? It's got an actual button there.
Yeah, hard key button, you're right. But again, it's configurable. Hard key button by default is sending the Grandstream start code. So it's the PBX that is doing the recording for you. I mean, the phone has a USB port like the EXP21XX. Currently, we're not using that for storage, but eventually I think we can enable that option. But I mean, most of the time you want to record calls from an administrator perspective. So that's why you want to have control everything, all the recordings in one location.
Can you attach like network storage?
Yeah. I mean, the PBX has a USB and SD drive, so there's an option later that you can tell where do you want to store the recordings. Either local in the flash, you have only 1 gig, or in the remote external devices.
And how hard is it to retrieve?
Yeah, that's we're gonna go there.
Because the
that's a good-
professional recording things are starting at like $10,000.
Yeah.
So if you can go with this, I mean, you could charge $5,000. Still saving money.
I heard that other PBXs, they have a recording module. What is it? I think in the hotel. I can't remember.
Usually
It's like
they're $5,000,
5,000, like $2,000, the recording module.
Oh, that's cheap. Usually 10,000.
Wow. So it's included here. All right, zero config. This is something I really like because you can basically do a full provisioning within a few clicks. So automatically the PBX is, we have some proprietary protocol. I mean, the phones are broadcasting a special message. The UCM is catching that message, understanding this is a Grandstream phone, and then we're gonna list it here. So these are the phones that are detected, or that were detected, yesterday I was doing some testing, in the network. So if you have a J33275, you look at it in the list, then you go to the edit button.
This is what I want.
And then from the extensions that you created, you can basically go and enable the, I mean, this is a 6-line phones, so you can basically select an extension from here, click save, and beside the extension, you can also do some MPKs, basic stuff. Oh, and then when you click save, the UCM is going to send a zip message. You can do it yourself. The phone is going to send a zip message so the phone gets provisioned automatically within a few seconds.
So you had accounts there, the list of accounts, 6 accounts?
Yeah, those accounts were the one that we created in the extension batch. When I created the batch extensions.
When you did the first batch of the extension?
So you need to create the extension first,
Yeah.
then come to the zero config
Right.
and assign the extensions to the phones.
Create extensions.
And on
But you
this,
can only assign one extension to each phone.
Correct.
No. You've got 4 lines, but you get 4 extensions.
I mean, no, yeah, each phone has multiple zip lines. So most of the time you're going to be using one line only. Then you can assign one extension to that line.
Right.
You can assign other extensions to the other lines, but sometimes it doesn't make sense.
and on the zero config on the Auto Discover, it says you can scan an entire network segment for just a particular IP address, but it only allows you to enter in an IP address. There's no option to enter in a range.
I think so, yeah. We're going to go with that right now.
You try and do that, and it says, sorry, I can only let you put in 3 digits.
Let's see. Probably it's a browser thing. That one is one of these options, but before, let me finish this part. So basically, when you click edit, the phone gets provisioned automatically. Sometimes the phones may be in a different network, VPN, or for some reason the packets, you have some switch that is blocking some of the, basically using a subscribe zip message so the phone can broadcast it. Some switches, they block broadcasting messages. So obviously the UCM is not going to detect that phone. Then you can do an auto discovery.
Would you first do a model template or a global template before you would do this?
No, you don't have to. I'm going to talk about that. That's in case you want to be more specific. If you have a big deployment and you have a group, a department that they require some specific settings, then you can create a template.
Well, even if you have like 10 phones, you want to put BLF in and all that stuff.
No,
Instead of
okay.
going to each individual one
Oh, okay.
and programming, if they're
Yes.
all the same model,
Yes.
wouldn't you just create a template
Right.
before you would do the
Right.
auto discover?
Yes. Yes. That's an example of doing the template. PLF.
Yeah, or whatever you want, because they're all exactly the same phones. Normally you would deploy, except for executives, but it was all, let's say 1450s.
Right.
You want them all to have the same.
So PLF. But sometimes you want to be more specific, like CEO, he has a video phone, I'm going to add video.
Then you would be more,
Right.
that's, it cuts down instead of doing 10, just doing one. So the template.
Yep, I'm going to go with that one next. So back to the auto discovery, sometimes the switch is blocking some of the broadcast packet, you can be more specific. If you know the IP address of the phone, basically you enter it here. And then, the user is going to ping the device, it's going to find the device by entering the IP. What option you were using?
Certain fields and
Ours maybe?
So that's like a maintenance, right?
What if it was in a different
Ours
range
is
though,
auto
through the network?
So if you just.
No, you got to be in the same range.
different thing.
I mean, yeah, you can have 2 different segments, right? And in your switch you can connect it. I mean, as long as they can see each other, the UCM and the phones,
And so what I'm gonna do, let's try this one.
that should be fine. But they can be in a different segment that you need, from the network perspective, you can include, you can reach both segments. But that's more in the network. For me, the UCM only needs to reach the phone, regardless. So we have different methods to scan the network by ping, ARP, or SIG messages. When you enter the IP address of that particular phone, when you click save, the UCM is going to start scanning the phone.
But what if you want to do the whole network?
255?
255?
Yeah, 255.
255.
255?
Yeah, it scans them all.
So it's going to scan the whole.
Oh, so you've got to put in the broadcast address.
Mhm.
Okay, it doesn't say that.
Hidden feature.
Yeah, I think in the tooltips.
Okay, 255 right at the end.
So So keep that in mind. We use this protocol for scanning ping, ARP, and zip messages. Okay. And once the phone is detected, obviously you do the same thing in the edit. Now, before going into the templates or global policies,
Because I've given an example, but now.
the UCM has 3 ways of using the zero config. The one that we just did, which is kind of the default one, or you can enable automatic configuration assignment. So basically, you need to have a range of extensions that are going to be using the UCM is going to be using that range. So automatically, after the UCM detects one phone, assign randomly an extension to that phone and go to all the deployments. I mean, some people like it, maybe not, because you want to have a specific extension for some specific queue or offices. Then I like the next option, which is they call the pickup extension. So basically, you assign a range, again down here. Then you have a timer. So you go with your phones around the office. This is good for updating a analog PBX. So you have offices with phone extension 100, for example. You come with your IP phone connected in the network. You know that this cubicle has extension 100. Then when you connect the phone, you're going to see all the extensions available. You select 100, and then from the phone you can provision the phone by enabling this option, the peak extension. So that one is good for this type of deployments when you are upgrading an analog PBX. Super fast.
Even like you go around.
You go around with your
And then-
phones connected in the network, and then you see the available extension. You select the one that belongs for that office, and you get provision.
And by the way, on zero config, if you delete all your extensions and then you go to Discover, it says another task is running,
Oh, really?
and you reload that page and you try it again, and it still says another task is running. So it won't let you do anything.
So when you remove all the extensions and then scan it again, we can see that later. That will remind me of the break.
No, that's it.
So we can create templates or policies.
So once you add add the extension to the phone, it should come up active, right?
The phone,
Yeah.
yeah, the phone automatically, depending what phone do you have,
The 2130.
2130. If you have the latest firmware, the phone automatically should.
I just rebooted it and it still didn't come up with the.
So you assign an extension.
Assign the extension. Yeah.
Oh, there's a button that you may, when you click apply to the extension that you assign to the phone, there's another prompt asking you, do you want to send a notification to the phone? Probably if you didn't see it, then you can manually click here, this button, update. Then PBX is going to send a message to the phone. So you can have global policies. For a large deployment, you may have, we talk about language, for example. Then you can create a language policy that, this particular office, I want it to be using French, for example. So all the auto provisioning, when the PBX provision the phones with extension, is going to include whatever policies you enable here. For example, language, then you select French, then the phones are going to be provisioned with the language, with the particular language that you select. You can also do, everything from dates, formatting, that plan. So all the typical settings that a phone has, when you enable that, the phone is going to get provision with extension plus this particular policy that you enable. However, sometimes you want to have different policies for an office that some department they're using a particular BLF group, other department using a different particular BLF groups, or different settings. Maybe this department or this branch or these phones are going to be going to a location that is remote. That's why you want to use a specific codec. So in other words, you can create multiple templates. You can call it remote employees, accounting department. So within that template, you're gonna select the particular settings that you wanna change, codex, BLF, whatever. And then when the phone gets provisioned, you're gonna select that template. You know, when you edit, select the extension. Then you can select the template that you created previously, and then the phone's gonna use those settings. This is a nice option that we just added. We launched a couple phones in the last few weeks, in the last few months maybe. GXP 1625 and 1620, and soon in a few more months, the 1628 is gonna be coming up. So what happened is that the PBX, obviously today, I don't know the new phones that Grandstream is coming up, right? So if you want to keep the same firmware on the PBX, again, that firmware doesn't know the new phones that Grandstream is doing, right? So what you can do is, instead of updating the firmware, just come to this model update, and basically we are connecting with the Grandstream server only for the phone's template. And yesterday, for example, I provisioned a 1625. The 1625 is a new phone. That particular model was not in this firmware. So by coming here and clicking the download button, I'm going to download the templates for that model. So then in my zero config, if it is a 1625, now it's going to be named as 1625 with all the particular settings.
So when you click on download, it downloads it locally, doesn't it?
No, it's downloaded from the server. So here you can see the versions, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday I downloaded one. So the UCM had locally remote the template 1.4. For example, this is a good example. The 1620, I have the template 1.4. If I click download, and there's a new update, by the way, then you're going to see the version right next to it, probably 1.4 plus, or whatever you download here.
And then that template will now show in model templates?
Right.
Okay.
Surveillance, for example, that one we didn't have it, I just downloaded it, and now I can recognize any surveillance product. Now you were asking about faxing, so this is the new menu. I know that we need to work on it a little more. This is in the 9.23, probably you don't have it, right? So this is the one you do?
Yeah, I did.
In at 12?
Yeah, well, I'll connect.
Oh, you had another 23?
Yeah.
Good. So basically, you come to the web interface, you enter the fax number here, and then you upload the PDF file, click send, and we're gonna send a fax. Unfortunately, this is only the administrator profile, and eventually, I believe in the next firmware, it's gonna be also in the user profile.
What would be the application of that? What would be the application of that feature? How would I
Send
use
the
that?
fax from the computer.
Say that again?
How would I use this feature?
As an administrator?
Well, when it's the new one's out, it's a user.
Okay, so because you have the user and password, you can open your browser, and then you're gonna go into your portal, and then you're gonna have that fax option, similar to this one. So you can upload your PDF and send it to via fax.
Okay.
So the user from individual browser, they can do the sending fax.
So I'm scanning a file, or taking a file, and sending it as fax to the PDF.
Currently, we can receive faxes.
Difficult.
Sounds like just being email.
Yeah, I mean, paperless. I mean, you can receive faxes, as you know. It has some fax detection tones. We can then convert it to PDF. And there are multiple ways we can send it to an email address, or we can send it to a particular extension where you have a fax machine. Okay, now let's go to the good stuff, trunks. Probably we're gonna do analog trunks and then a couple of zip trunks. So you have, we can create a new trunk, which is basically the same thing as what I have right now. So basically you enter a name here. You can select either, this is a 6102, so I have two FXO ports. So if you want, you can select only one port, and then you create another trunk with the second port. That's when you have different phone providers. Provider A, you want to send local calls. Provider B, you want to send international calls, something like that. So you enter a name. Now these are typical settings. Normally you don't need to change it. Now here in Canada, I noticed that some phone providers, we're having some echo issues with the lines. So the UCM has an auto detect. When you run that, most of the time the echo is gone. But I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot an echo problem when the auto detect doesn't fix it. But again, these are typical options. Enable polarity reversal. We don't use that in North America. But if you are connecting analog PBX into the FXO of the UCM, then probably the PBX is supporting polarity reversal. Then you can enable it here. Normally these are methods.
Hold on a second, that's actually a big number. We actually had that thing selected, and we had a customer's PBX has ceased for like 48 hours before we actually detected that this little thing created the whole thing. So enable polarity reversal is a big number. We don't use it. We don't use it in Canada.
No, we don't use it, right?
Yeah.
With the regular lines.
Yeah.
But there's some solution that you have an analog PBX solution,
Yeah.
and then you want to integrate an IP PBX. So you can keep your analog PBX, and then when connecting to an UCM like this, then you use the FXO port of the UCM.
You mean like peering the two analog things?
Sort of in the analog part. So then the analog PBX is going to connect to the UCM with the FXO port. So most likely the analog PBX also doesn't support polarity reversal, but I mean, just for you to know that you have that option here. Don't enable it, because here in North America and Canada, the phone provider they don't use polarity reversal unless you request it. So these three options, enable polarity reversal and current disconnect, are the methods for the UCM know that the call has ended on the central office.
Yeah, we had disconnected it prior to that.
When enabling
It's just not,
PR?
it's not recognizing the disconnect. It's just CO.
when using PR?
Yeah, the disconnect supervision is not working.
Well, we can talk about that.
Is this the same customer we talked about this week?
The only customer.
Yeah, okay, so still not working, even after we fixed it last time. Did it stall again,
Oh, like I tested it right there and then, and
So the line gets active, doesn't recognize, doesn't know the channel.
yeah, the 200 milliseconds is way below what it should be. It should be 450.
Disconnect timer.
That's what the
It
standard here.
stays there as busy. It used to be
And
there.
I'm surprised that they're not getting, disconnecting in the middle of the call.
Okay,
So I think that timer is not
too high.
An accurate timer.
Okay. So let's talk about that. In Canada, normally the phone providers, they use current disconnect, right? So basically they send like a flash to indicate that the call has ended. This is the threshold that you can use, 200 milliseconds, to indicate that if the flash has a 200 milliseconds, then we recognize that this is a disconnection. Thank you. You can play with that, you can increase it, you can lower it in case it's still not detecting the correct one. However, in some cases, it's the busy tone. We don't have that option here, but in North America we use also busy tone. So basically, in the central office, when people hang up, they're going to provide a busy tone. That busy tone within 1 or 2, we're gonna detect it and close the channel. Then what you should be playing, actually, so just to make a summary, in some cases, people hang up on the PSTN side and the UCM doesn't detect that, so the channel stays open for indefinitely. So what you need to do is, number 1, run an auto detect. We're gonna go over that in a few. I mean, you can play with the options first. I mean, in my opinion, I would go to the auto detect first. But if still the auto detect is still not working, then you can start going to each of the options, either the current disconnect threshold or the BC tone. So basically, the BC tone that we're using here is this one. We are basically recognizing, listening to the tones. When we find a match, we know that this is a BC tone, and then we recognize it as a call disconnect. You can probably select Canada here. So you can, so the BC tones are preset, pre-configured with this frequency. But again, in my opinion, this is what I would do, auto detection. So all these settings that you see above here, you click detect, and at least you need to have 2 lines. You can still do the semi-auto detection with only 1 line, but I don't recommend it. It's better to have 2 lines. In the source channel, you select, for example, FX01, destination FX02, and then enter the phone number associated with line 2. When you click detect, the UCM is going to open channel 1, it's going to make a call to channel 2, so basically it's a loop, right? And then the PBI is going to start sending some commands to try to understand what is the settings for these 2 particular lines. When the detection finishes, it's going to give you a message with the setting that has been detected, so you can apply it or cancel it.
No, that's great.
I would give it a try to that. If for some reason you're
So
still having...
If you have 4 trunks, you just have to do it, like 3 times or whatever, right?
Normally, if it's the same service provider, the settings are going to be the same. But I've seen cases where they're not. Yeah, because sometimes, service provider, they buy other service providers. So you may have 4 lines, but these 2 lines are going to one central office, the other 2 lines are going to another central office. So, the wiring condition, the distance, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, makes
So you're saying you test 183 and then 183, 184?
exactly.
Right.
But wouldn't that only be testing 1?
Against all the others.
Yeah, I mean,
Would it be like
this is
1,
a
2,
2-line
3,
device.
3, 4?
But if you have a 4-line device, you're going to have more ports here.
But by doing this test, you automatically test 2 lines.
2 lines, yes.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. Like you test
Oh,
1
okay.
and 2,
And then 3.
and then 3, and then 4.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So you don't have to do it reversed.
No.
So you don't have to do 1, 2, and then 2, 1.
No, only
Yeah, that's
1,
what
2
I was
is enough.
thinking, yeah.
But go back up, please. That channel 1 and 2. Like, is there an advantage or disadvantage to do both or all 4 as a 1 name? How does it then on the CDR? Does it show like test for all 4?
Well, depend on your scenario. If you have, for example, 2 phone providers, and you know that one give you better rate to call Latin America, and the other one doesn't give you that rate, so then you can separate it. One trunk with line 1 and another trunk with line 2. Then in the call routing, you can say, when dialing international, send it to this trunk, which is line 1.
Yeah.
But for what you're saying about settings, impedance and everything, and auto detection results, either way, if you separate it, you still need to run the auto detection in both trunks.
No, I want to simplify things, so I would select all 4 channels.
Yes, I will do that.
As 1. But what I'm saying is that for let's say CDR or some different things like that, like how is it gonna?
It's still in the CDR, we're gonna show what trunk the call is using. So then in the trunk name, you can specify, for example, here, if you're using only 1 line, most of the time people enter the phone number. So in the CDR, or you can name it. mail line 1. You know what I mean? So in the CDR, you can see what line that will use.
There's no disadvantage to, let's say, if I had four of the lines, just select one channel per line. You can do it like that. There's no disadvantage, is there?
No, but depending on the case, most of the time, you want to select all 4 channels into one trunk. It's more easy, more convenient. When setting up the call routing that we're going to be doing later, it's easier.
So you have
But-
to do it 4 times, right?
Right, but there are some cases that you may have to separate the lines in
Yeah,
different
like
trunks.
customer wants to know, what incoming line this call came through, like the name, then this is the only way to do it.
Right, yes.
When you name the
But sometimes people don't care about what particular line.
Yeah, no.
It depends, on the scenario.
When you name the trunk, is that what shows on the display when it's called, or is that just for?
Yes, that's a good point.
No, there's
see-
a different spot for that. There's like a global color ID and.
There is an option in the call routing when we start doing the call routing that you can select. We call it prepend trunk name. So if the call is coming from this trunk and the call routing is saying, okay, send it to this extension, then the extension I'm going to see an incoming call with this trunk name. Oh, so the call is going to show on my phone with this trunk name and then the caller ID. So you know that the call is coming from that particular line. It's good for multi-tenant, so you can still have a bunch of lines or SIP trunks, and we're using one particular PBX for multiple companies.
I noticed you have a new field in there called DAVI outline selection, and it's got a parameter called poll. Does that mean that you don't need to use descent?
So this is for outbound calls, in case I have 2 or more lines, right? Like here. So my outbound calls, what line I'm going to be using? So this is the setting for that purpose. Because sometimes you have 4 lines, let's say 8 or 16 lines. Your phone company, you have a, how do you call it, 100? Or round robin. So you have a main number.
Run Robin Hunt.
Right, you have a unique number with 8 lines, and then the phone provider is going to send all the calls to the first line and to the second one. So to avoid collision or to avoid busy lines, you can better configure this, that for your outbound calls, you prefer to use the last one.
Yeah,
Then
no,
going down.
I understand what the descent is, but what's the
Yeah,
poll option?
you're right. For ascendant, descendant makes sense. For the call, I think.
Doesn't it just grab the next available line from the lowest spot?
Like a pool?
It's like a pool key, and bottom up, top down.
Yeah, bottom up.
Yeah, makes sense. Probably.
Like, does poll check to see if there's a call on there and then sees the line if there isn't?
No. Unfortunately, my tooltip is not showing. Do you see that?
Well, the tooltip just says DOTI outline selection and default to the setting.
Yeah.
Doesn't really give any help.
No, doesn't change.
Could be based on the usage.
Is it supposed to say pool? Because that would
I don't know.
make
I need to
sense.
check that one. I owe you that answer.
No, because of this feature that he just mentioned, shouldn't we then use the feature with the channels? Like if I have 4 channels and I want to have that DOTI actually working, then I have to select all 4 channels.
Yes. Right. I think by
Otherwise, it's not
default.
going to work.
No, this is simple as.
Now it's going to descend
It
one.
just
one
wouldn't
channel.
matter, yeah. You wouldn't have to change any settings because it's just one.
No, because I know because when we were doing when we had to go to the outbound routing, there was really dumb that we had to fail over in order to get another trunk.
No, but you can, in this trunk you have multiple lines. The UCM is going to send it to that pool of lines. Now, in what order to use them is based on this.
No, this is what I like. This is the way it should be.
The old firmware version we were using didn't have that option.
Yeah.
That's a new option.
Okay.
Yeah.
But by default, it's using ascending.
Asterisk has always had that option, but Grandstream never had it visible.
Oh, I see.
All right, I owe you that
How
one.
we were going to fail over.
But poll is an option that I'm not familiar with an asterisk.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Maybe
this-
just pull certain, yeah, I don't know how that works.
That's a new option, so I will use that answer. Now, back to the auto recording. So this is the option where you enable, and every single call going to that trunk is going to be recorded. You can play also with the gain. You know, sometimes every provider they may have some old lines, and the volume is too low. You can pop it up from here.
But the auto detection should
Gain? No.
Gain, no?
No.
No gain?
No, I mean, we don't touch that. The auto detection doesn't touch the gain. Or maybe, yes.
That's what it's usually
Yes,
for.
you're right. The auto detection is basically detecting all these settings that we're showing here.
So,
So what if-
Ernesto,
what if-
I have a question. Sorry, go ahead.
What if it's only one line that you need to turn the volume up, but you have all the channels clicked in that trunk? How do you do just one?
In that case, that's why I was saying that sometimes the lines, even that you have one phone company, the lines are going to different
Trunks.
trunks or
Oh, okay.
central offices. So if you encounter something like that, then you need to separate it.
So if you set it up as in all channels, then you'd have to literally reconfigure all your trunks
Right.
just to turn up the volume on one line.
Exactly. Yes. For sure.
So Ernesto, we found out like, this current disconnect threshold. I'm not sure, like, maybe the analog guys know much better than me.
Okay.
Is it varies between day and night. It varies between longer cable than shorter cable. Like, found out, let's say Bell Canada, it works on 400 or 450.
450.
So that works fine. Then you have a customer where you go and say it's not working for 450, and you see that, like, the cable is too long or the cable is too old. Is that something you see, or
Yeah,
possible at least?
But basically what I think, the speech that wasn't there before is this auto detect. This auto detect will actually create the disconnection.
Right.
And it will actually look for the appropriate time. And I think that's how you achieve the ultimate.
Now, changing,
Oh, really? So, isn't that the case?
right, but if the current disconnect changes during the day, no, I don't think that happens. Normally it changes based on the line. So
We
some
didn't
lines,
know
they may
what's
have
the-
different current disconnection thresholds. Because of the last mile, maybe it's over the mile, the wiring condition may affect that. So that's why you always need to run, I mean, if you have any issues, if not, I mean, obviously you need to connect the lines, make some calls. If everything's fine, you don't need to play with these options. But if you encounter some issue, then you need to go more in depth.
I found also, like, Rogers has more problems than Bell due to the fact that they're sending the signal on a cable, like, the TV cable. So I found out that, these things really fluctuate. Even when you do an auto detect, let's say if you do it at 8 a.m. in the morning, and you come and do it one more time at 2 p.m., you get different results. I've seen that by my own eyes. So anyway, and Ernesto knows that I'm not a big fan of the auto detect. We have different opinions about it. I've come from experience, he came from, like, knowledge. But we found out that auto detect, actually in many cases, the line stopped working.
Oh, really?
So no, that doesn't mean don't do it. I mean, try it. If you see there is a problem, go back to the original settings. But it happened to us, like, sometimes, especially, as I said, with Rogers, auto detect stops working completely.
So it's good for Bell?
So you
Works a lot. It works way much better with Bell
So
Canada.
basically, you should do this before you set anything else up. So you
Yeah.
can- So check the lines in that first right away, and then do everything else.
And honestly, from, like, sorry, I do not want to take your time, but from experience, what we do is we go with the 200, we increase it to 400. That's the first thing we do. The RX, usually, if the customer has an echo, because lots of times the customer, the first thing you install, they will call, say, there is an echo on the line. So the it says, like, either the RX or the TX. Most likely, if the echo is at the other side, it's the TX. If the echo is on your side, it's the RX. So you start lowering that. And if the volume is low, you start hiring that. And then, you wish yourself good luck. and try it, like, But I mean, honestly, it's always the analog line. I'm not sure if Ernesto agrees with me or not. It's always tricky. That's why you should go with SIP trunking.
That's all the thing about it.
On that note, on the Grandstreams, does it use software EchoCan or hardware EchoCan?
Hardware, say that again, the last part?
The Echo cancellation, is that hardware or
Oh,
software?
for the UCM, I think we do both. Select as an SXS. So we do hardware, and I know that we can actually develop the leg in software.
And how many taps and what's the tail?
Don't know that. Yeah. But let's talk about that because
And
from
maybe
support.
adjust the software as well.
Actually, it is definitely software for sure because and this is what I'm going to tell you guys. Canadian customers, we receive a lot of support calls. We have probably about 200, 300 per week. And I know, we have support in Latin America and Europe, and we noticed that only Canadian customers are reporting echo issues. Don't know why. Latin America, they don't report that issue that many. In the US, almost nothing. So in any case, we have some customers reporting that thing, that echo problem. The normal troubleshooting is running the auto detect. I'm going to show you another menu that you can detect not only, remember in this auto detect, you can detect the call disconnection, gain, caller ID, and BC tone. In the next menu that we're going to go over after this, you can detect the impedance of the line. If you have an impedance mismatch, then you're going to have echo. Echo for sure happens when you have an impedance issue. So after running the troubleshooting, this is what I'm showing in the next menu that I'm going to go over. Most of the time the echo gets fixed. However, there are still some cases pending. So what we did is we grabbed like 4 or 5 customers from Canada, West, Toronto, and Montreal. We did a lot of investigation, and last week we released a new internal firmware. So Echo is via software. The algorithm is software and hardware, and the results were very positive. So in the next firmware release, we're going to include that patch, that works for Echo.
So will that fix the problem where it takes about 2 seconds before the applicant actually finishes getting trained on that call?
Normally, the echo happens within the first few seconds, right? The algorithm take a few seconds to kick in. So when you hear the echo, just give it a few seconds.